My name is Donna Atwood. I'm 33 years old. I came home after a 16-hour double shift at the hospital, barely able to feel my feet. And the first thing I noticed was silence. Not the normal kind of quiet, the wrong kind. I walked down the hallway, stopped outside my daughter's bedroom, and felt my whole body go still. Lily's room was empty. Lily is 7. Her bed was gone. Her stuffed animals were gone. The little shelf where she kept her drawings was gone. And the ceiling? Half of the glow-in-the-dark stars we had painted together had been covered with gray primer. For a few seconds, I stood there trying to understand what I was looking at. My tired mind jumped to the worst possible thought. Then it clicked. Lily hadn't disappeared. She had been moved out of her own room like a piece of furniture nobody wanted anymore. My mother stood in the doorway behind me, arms crossed. "We voted," she said. She didn't blink. She didn't soften her voice. "You don't get a say." My sister Brooke was already across the hall, sealing a cardboard box with Lily's name written on the side. I didn't raise my voice. I almost never do. But 40 minutes later, sitting at my own kitchen table, I said something so calmly that all 3 of them went pale. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories, where quiet people hold their ground without ever needing to shout. Leave a comment and don't forget to subscribe. Let me go back 3 days, because that empty bedroom did not happen out of nowhere. I had been a nurse for 8 years. Most of those years, I worked nights. Nights paid a little more, and a little more had been my entire plan for a long time. I saved every extra dollar in a credit union account I never touched. No vacations, no new car, no shopping sprees, just savings. 2 years ago, that account turned into a small brick house on Coldwater Lane. The porch leaned slightly to one side. The kitchen looked like it had been waiting since the 1980s for someone to care about it again. But it was mine. The first thing in my life that had ever been only mine. During our second week in the house, Lily looked up at her bedroom ceiling and asked, "Can we make it look like the sky?" So we bought glow paint and a bag of stick-on stars. That Sunday, we spent hours on a little stepladder, creating our own constellations. She named one after our cat. She named another after me. When the lights went out, the whole room glowed soft blue, and Lily would whisper goodnight to every star as if they could hear her. That was her room. That was our ceiling. And I thought nobody could touch that. 3 years before the house, my father had a major heart procedure. He got through it, thankfully, but the recovery was long and money was tight. My mother asked if they could stay with me just until Dad was back on his feet. My younger sister Brooke came too, because Brooke always came too. Just until. Those 2 words can be dangerous when the wrong people say them. Dad got back on his feet, then he settled into his recliner. 3 years passed, and somehow nobody ever mentioned leaving. By the time I bought the house on Coldwater Lane, all 3 of them simply moved in with me, the way water slips into the lowest place it can find. And I let it happen. I was busy keeping a little girl fed, safe, and loved. That was my first mistake. Here is how a house stops feeling like yours without anyone signing a single paper. It starts small. My mother rearranged my kitchen cabinets during the first week, putting the mugs where she preferred them. Then the calendar on the fridge became her calendar. Then the best chair at the dinner table became my father's chair, and everyone silently learned not to sit there. By the second year, my mother had one word she used whenever she wanted her way: family. "We don't keep score in this family," she would say, while keeping score. "We share everything in this family," she would say, while sharing my groceries, my space, my time, and my patience. She said it like a prayer, like if she repeated the word enough, it made everything fair. And I let her, because correcting her took energy I didn't have. After 13 hours at the hospital, you do not start a battle over coffee mugs. Brooke was 29 and trying to become famous online. She had a ring light, a tripod, and a phone full of videos almost nobody watched. She called her page Home and Harmony. She filmed herself folding towels, lighting candles, and talking about intention. The account had 400 followers, and 3 of them were my mother's friends from Bridge Club. Brooke said she needed a real space. She said it often. A real space to film. A real space to grow her brand. A real space with better light and a door that closed. Whenever she said it, her eyes moved around my small house like she was choosing something that already belonged to her. My father said almost nothing. He watched his shows and let my mother speak for him. He had become a quiet shape in a recliner. I kept telling myself it was temporary. I told myself that for 3 years. But Lily and I still had her room of stars. I thought at least that room was safe. The Tuesday before my double shift, we had spaghetti for dinner. That detail stayed with me. Spaghetti, garlic bread, a normal Tuesday evening. Brooke put down her fork and spoke as casually as if she were talking about the weather. "I've been thinking about the studio thing." My mother nodded before Brooke even finished. Not the kind of nod that says, "I'm listening." The kind of nod that says, "We already discussed this." Brooke spread her hands. "I just need a real space. Good light. A door I can close." Her eyes drifted down the hallway, toward the only door that mattered to me. "That's Lily's room," I said. I kept my voice flat. Brooke shrugged. "It's a big room for one little kid, and she's barely in there during the day." Lily was right there in the living room, building a fort out of couch cushions and pretending not to hear us. But children always hear. "She's 7, I said, setting my glass down. "She's supposed to be at school during the day." My mother folded her napkin into a perfect square. "Donna, nobody is deciding anything tonight. We're just talking as a family." There it was again. Family. The word that always came right before someone took something from me. I looked at Brooke. "The answer is no. It's her room." Brooke rolled her eyes and turned to our mother, and my mother gave her a small, patient smile. That smile said, "Don't worry." That smile said, "Leave it to me." I should have understood what that smile meant, but I was tired, and I missed it. Later that night, I tucked Lily into bed. She held Biscuit, her gray stuffed rabbit with one missing button eye, the same one she'd had since she was 2. "Mama," she whispered, "can we add more stars when you're home?" "Of course, baby." I reached up and traced one of the painted stars above her bed. "All the stars you want." She fell asleep under our little painted sky. The next morning came too early, the way mornings always do after a short night. I worked at St. Bridges, the regional hospital about 20 minutes up Route 9. A double shift meant I would leave before Lily woke up and come home after she was already asleep. I hated those days. I worked them anyway because the mortgage never cared how tired I was. I got dressed in the dark. My badge hung from its blue lanyard by the door, exactly where it always did. Donna Atwood, RN. I slipped it over my head, and the little laminated card landed against my chest like it weighed more than it should. Lily woke up just enough to find me before I left. She came padding into the kitchen in her socks, her hair wild from sleep, Biscuit hanging from one hand. "Are you working the long one?" she asked. "The long one," I said. She nodded, still half asleep. But Grandma will pick you up from school. She wrapped both arms around my waist and squeezed. Paint more stars when you're home, Mama, she whispered into my scrubs. I promise. I kissed the top of her head. Be good. I love you to the moon. To the moon and the dog star, she mumbled. That was our thing. I left at 6:15. The sky was a dull gray, the kind that makes the whole world look tired. In my rearview mirror, the house sat small and quiet. My entire life was inside it. My daughter, my home, everything I had worked for. By noon, my phone started buzzing in my locker. I couldn't answer it. I was with a patient whose condition had suddenly turned serious, and in that kind of moment, there is no pause button. Buzz, buzz, buzz. 3 calls from my mother, 2 texts from Brooke, 1 message from a number I didn't recognize. I told myself it could wait 1 more hour. People who have never worked in a hospital don't always understand that. Some hours do not belong to you. Some hours, your phone may as well be on another planet. That hour cost me. The patient's condition dropped, then improved, then dropped again. By the time we had him stable and moved upstairs, 2 hours had passed, and my hands were still shaking. Not from fear, from focus, from doing the job right. That is who I am when nobody is making decisions behind my back. I am steady. I am the calm person in the loud room. It is the one thing I have always known how to be. Renata found me at the supply station, refilling my pockets. She was the charge nurse, 61 years old, gray braid, sharp eyes, and no patience for foolishness. She had buried 2 husbands, raised 4 children, and seen just about every version of life twice. You look like a woman whose phone won't stop, she said, without looking up from the chart. My family, I said. Probably about a room. Family, Renata repeated. She made the word sound like a diagnosis. Then she glanced at me. Eat something before you call them back. You can't pour from an empty pot. I laughed because she was right. So I ate a granola bar standing up. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought about a folder. It sat in the bottom drawer of my dresser. A plain manila folder with all my closing papers inside. The deed, the mortgage, the survey of the lot. I had only looked at it once since the day I signed everything. That was the night I bought the house, when I sat on the bare floor and cried because, for the first time in my life, something was truly mine. I didn't know yet that I would need that folder. Back then, I thought of it like a fire extinguisher. Good to have, better if you never need it. So I left the buzzing phone in my locker and told myself it was a problem for later. Later came at 9:40 that night. I pulled into my driveway and saw every light in the house on. The front door was unlocked. The moment I stepped inside, I smelled fresh paint and packing tape. I walked down the hallway to Lily's room. Then I stopped in the doorway. Her bed was gone. Her dresser was gone. Half the ceiling, our little painted sky, had been covered with gray primer. The stars were disappearing underneath it. Brooke was kneeling in the middle of the room with a tape gun, sealing a box with Lily written across the side in black marker. A ring light stood in the corner, already plugged in, already glowing. Where is my daughter? My voice was very quiet. People who know me know that is the voice they should pay attention to. My mother appeared behind me in the hallway, arms folded, chin lifted. She's with her father for a few days, she said. She's fine. Travis hasn't seen her in 5 months. He's still her father. My mother lifted her chin a little higher. We talked it over, all of us. We voted. Then she looked me straight in the face. "You don't get a say." We voted. You don't get a say. I have replayed those 8 words more times than I can count. Said in my hallway. About my child. Inside my house. In front of my daughter's life packed into cardboard boxes. Brooke didn't even look up from the tape gun. "It's actually a really good room for filming," she said. "The light is amazing in the afternoon." I looked at the gray streaks covering the stars. I looked at the box with my child's name on it. And something inside me became cold. Clear. Still. People expect a mother to fall apart in a moment like that. To shout. To throw something. To lose control. I didn't. I set my keys down where the dresser used to be, realized it was gone, and placed them on the windowsill instead. "Okay," I said. "Tell me exactly what you all decided." Here is something I learned at the hospital. When everything around you turns chaotic, you slow down. You ask questions. You find out what is actually true before you touch anything. So I did not shout. I asked, "When did Lily leave?" "This afternoon," my mother said. "Right after school. Travis picked her up." "Did anyone call me?" "We tried. You didn't answer." She said it like my missed calls proved something. Like being unable to answer a phone during a hospital shift meant I had already lost the right to be heard. "What did you tell Travis?" A small pause. The first crack. "That you needed a break," my mother said. My eyes stayed on her face. "You told him what?" "That you were overwhelmed," she said. "And that he could take Lily for a few days." "I never asked that." "Well," she smoothed her sleeve. "Someone had to think practically." Practically. That was the word she chose. The practical side was my 7-year-old riding away with a man she barely knew anymore, because 3 adults in my house wanted her bedroom. "And the room?" I asked. Brooke finally looked up. "We figured while she was gone we'd get it set up. It's easier than doing it around her." "While she was gone," I repeated. My mother spread her hands. "We're a family. Families make decisions together. You've been so busy, Donna. We were trying to help." I looked at all of them. My mother, certain she was right. My sister, annoyed that I was slowing down her plan. My father, somewhere in the living room, saying nothing, as usual. I did not feel the kind of anger that burns hot and fast. What I felt was much quieter than that. It was the feeling of a door closing somewhere deep inside me. Softly. Completely. "Okay," I said. The word came out flat. "Thank you for explaining." Then I picked Biscuit up from the half-packed box, walked to my car, and called the only number that mattered. Travis answered on the second ring, which surprised me. "Donna," he said. "Hey, I was going to call you." In the background, I heard a television. And then I heard something worse. The small, specific sound of my daughter not talking. Lily talked constantly when she was happy. When Lily was silent, something was wrong. "Put Lily on in a minute," I said. "First, tell me exactly what my mother told you." He sighed. Travis was not a bad man. He was a tired, distant man who had left when Lily was 2 and remembered to send a birthday card most years. That was its own kind of absence, but it was not done with cruelty. "Your mom called this morning," he said. "She told me you were burned out, said you needed a few days and asked if I could take Lily. She made it sound like you arranged the whole thing." "I didn't arrange anything." There was a long pause. "I thought something felt off," he admitted. "Lily was upset the whole drive. She kept asking when you were coming. I didn't know what to tell her." I closed my eyes and breathed the way I teach anxious patients to breathe. In for 4, hold, out for 4. "It's not your fault," I said, and I meant it. "You were given the wrong story. I'm coming to get her tonight, as long as that's okay with you." "Of course," he said, and I could hear the relief in his voice. "Honestly, Donna, I love her, but I'm not set up for full-time. I never was." At least he was honest. My mother had sent my child to the one person who had already shown everyone he couldn't be there every day, and then called it the practical side. "Let me talk to her." I heard him call Lily's name. Then I heard small footsteps. Then my daughter's voice, shaky and small. "Mama?" "Hi, baby," I said, keeping my voice warm and ordinary. "I hear you're having a sleepover at Daddy's." "I don't want a sleepover," Lily said. "I want to come home. They put Biscuit in a box." "I've got Biscuit right here," I told her. "He's safe. He's sitting in my lap in the car, and he misses you." "Are you coming?" "I'm coming right now. I'm putting on my seatbelt this second. Can you hear it?" I clicked the buckle close to the phone. A tiny, watery laugh came through. "Yeah." 45 minutes, I said. "Pack your backpack, brush your teeth. I'll be there before you finish one show." "Okay." Then she went quiet for a second. "Mama?" "Yes, baby?" "Why did Grandma make me leave?" There are questions you cannot answer fully to a 7-year-old. You cannot say, "Because your aunt wanted to film her perfect little videos in your bedroom, and your grandmother thinks this house belongs to whoever speaks the loudest, so I told her the smallest true thing I could." "Grandma made a mistake," I said. "Grown-ups make mistakes too. I'm going to fix it. That's my job." "Fixing things is your job?" "That's right." "Okay, Mama." "To the moon," I whispered. "And the dog star," she whispered back. I ended the call, placed Biscuit gently on the passenger seat, and sat for 1 minute in my dark driveway with both hands on the wheel. A lot of people would have gone back into that house. They would have raised their voice. They would have given my mother a scene she could later describe to the neighbors as proof that I was too emotional, too difficult, too much. I didn't give her that. I never give them that. I put the car in reverse and went to get my girl. I want to pause the story here for a moment, because if you have ever been the calm one in a loud family, this part is for you. For years, I believed keeping the peace was the same thing as keeping my dignity. I thought if I never raised my voice, never made a scene, and never pushed back too hard, then I was winning by being the bigger person. But sometimes, being quiet does not mean you are peaceful. Sometimes it means you have been swallowing your own answer for years. If you have ever said yes just to keep a dinner table from turning cold, leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I read every one. And if calm comeback stories are your kind of comfort, subscribe. I post a new one every week. Now, back to that driveway. Before I had even backed out completely, my mother stepped onto the porch. She didn't look worried. She looked annoyed. The way someone looks at a child making a fuss in a store. "Where are you going?" she called. "To get my daughter." "Donna, you're overreacting. She's perfectly fine." "She's been upset for 6 hours. My mother waved one hand like that detail was nothing. "Children get upset. You're going to bring her back here and confuse her." We made a sensible decision as a family. You keep saying family like it's a vote you're allowed to win. It is, she said, crossing her arms. 4 of us, 1 of you. That's how votes work, honey. 4 of us, 1 of you. She actually counted. She counted my father's silence, my absent ex, and my sister's ambition as votes against my own child. I didn't argue with the math. Arguing was what she wanted. We'll talk when I get back, I said. Then I drove away while she was still in the middle of her sentence, which I have learned is often the calmest way to end a conversation with my mother. The drive to Travis's place gave me 45 minutes to think. And thinking is something I do well when my hands are busy. Here is what I knew. My mother believed she had power. She did not. Belief and power are not the same thing. But a confident person can pretend for a very long time. So what did she actually have? Nothing on paper. She paid no rent. She had signed no agreement. She was a guest who had forgotten she was a guest. The way long-term guests sometimes do, right up until the day they start making decisions about furniture that does not belong to them. And what did I have? I had a manila folder in the bottom drawer of my dresser. When I pulled up to Travis's place, Lily ran outside before I had even parked. Her backpack bounced against her shoulders as she threw herself into me so hard I had to steady my feet. I held her there on the sidewalk for a long time. Travis stood in the doorway, looking guilty and relieved at the same time. Without being asked, he carried her bag to the car. It was the most fatherly thing he had done in years. "I'm sorry," Travis said, "for believing it." "I know." Then I looked at him and said, "Take her to the zoo sometime because you want to, not because someone pushed you into it." He almost smiled. "Yeah," he said. "Okay." On the drive home, Lily fell asleep before we even reached the highway. Biscuit was tucked under her chin, one floppy ear pressed against her cheek. I drove with one hand on the wheel and held her little sock-covered foot with the other. And that was when the plan fully formed. Not a fight. I have never been good at fights. I find them messy, loud, and usually pointless. What I was going to give my family was not a scene. It was going to be a correction. Quiet, complete, and impossible to vote against. But first, I needed to know exactly where I stood. And for that, I needed to make a phone call I never imagined making about my own mother. I carried Lily inside at 11 that night and put her in my bed because hers no longer existed. She didn't wake up. I stood for a while in the doorway of her stripped-down room, looking at the gray shadows where our stars used to be. By morning, the house tried to act normal. My mother made pancakes, as if pancakes were an apology that didn't require words. Brooke scrolled through her phone at the counter. My father studied the back of the syrup bottle like it contained breaking news. Then my mother slid something across the counter while I poured coffee. A glossy brochure, a bank logo in the corner. "I've been looking into things," she said brightly. "Did you know that with everyone's income, we could refinance? Get the whole family on equal footing. Make it official that we're all in this together." I set the coffee pot down very carefully. "Refinance whose house?" "Our house, Donna," she said, smiling. "This house. It's silly that everything is only in your name. What if something happened to you? Where would we be?" And there it was, the real shape of it. It had never been only about a bedroom. The bedroom was a foothold. What they really wanted was a name on paper. "And the studio?" I asked, keeping my voice as weak and mild as watered-down tea. Brooke immediately looked up. "Oh, that's happening Saturday," she said. "I invited some collaborators for the reveal. A photographer is coming. It's going to be a whole launch." "Saturday?" I asked. My mother nodded, pleased because she thought I was finally coming around. "Saturday. It'll be lovely. Mrs. Okafor is stopping by too." I told her all about Brooke's brand. I nodded slowly, like a woman considering a plan she might accept. Inside, I was making a list. Saturday. Witnesses. A photographer. A neighbor. If they wanted an audience, I decided an audience was exactly what they were going to get. But first, I had a few calls to make. The thing that turned my stomach cold was sitting on the kitchen counter the next afternoon. Brooke's tablet. Plugged in, unlocked. She had left it charging while she ran out to buy backdrop fabric, the screen still glowing on a group chat. I am not the type of person who looks through other people's things, but the chat name was right there in cheerful letters, Atwood House, with a little house emoji, and I was not in it. My mother was in it. My father was in it. Brooke was in it. Even my Aunt Carol, 2 states away, was in it. Everyone named Atwood was included. Everyone except the Atwood whose name was actually on the deed. I read it standing up, and suddenly the floor felt very far away. The messages went back 6 weeks. 6 weeks. They had been discussing Lily's room long before that spaghetti dinner, where they had pretended they were just talking. They had been planning how to handle Donna. My mother had written it herself, word for word. "We'll just present it as a family vote. She won't go against the whole family. She never does." She never does. My own mother knew my calm nature well enough to use it as part of the plan. She had counted on it. My silence had never looked like peace to them. It looked like permission. There was more. A photo my mother had sent of a printed form propped up on that same kitchen counter. A quitclaim deed, half filled out. A sticky note attached to it. "Get Donna to sign. Tell her it's for the fire insurance." For the fire insurance. She had written herself a script to get my signature on a document I was never supposed to understand. I did not cry. I did not throw the tablet. I took out my own phone and photographed the screen. Every message. The deed form. The sticky note. All of it. Then I set Brooke's tablet back exactly where it had been. Glowing. Quiet. Innocent looking. After that, I texted Renata one sentence. "I need the name of that attorney." That night, after Lily was asleep, I sat on the floor of my closet. It was the only place in the house with a lock, and I gave myself exactly 10 minutes to feel it. 6 weeks. They had spent 6 weeks planning how to move my child out and move themselves deeper in. And they had built the entire plan on the idea that I was too gentle to stop them. The worst part was not the room. The room was just where everything became visible. The deeper wound was older than that. It was realizing they had studied my kindness and mistaken it for something they could use. When the 10 minutes were over, I stood up. I washed my face, and I got practical. Practical is my native language. I had just spent 3 years speaking everyone else's. I made a list, the same way I do at work when a patient's condition turns critical and panic is not an option. 1. Get Lily safe and steady. Done. She was home, sleeping in my bed, under what was left of our stars. 2. Find out exactly what the law said. Belief and power are not the same thing. I needed to know which one I actually had. 3. Do nothing visible until I knew. That was the hardest part. Every part of me wanted to walk out and confront them. But confrontation without solid ground is just noise. And they were very good at turning my noise into a story about poor Donna being too emotional. Renata texted back a name and number. Property and family matters, sharp as glass and dressed like Sunday brunch. Tell her I sent you. I saved the contact. Patricia Vance, attorney. I looked at the name for a long moment. Then I looked through the wall toward the room where my mother slept, probably certain she had already won. "You don't get a say," she had told me. We would see about that. I told her everything plainly, the same way I give report at shift change. The house, the deed in my name only, the mortgage in my name only. My parents and sister living there for 3 years without paying rent, without signing a lease, without any written agreement at all. The family vote. My daughter being sent to her father without my permission. The group chat, the quitclaim form, and the story about fire insurance. Patricia Vance stayed quiet while I talked. Then she asked 3 questions. Your name, and only your name, is on the deed and the mortgage? Only mine. They have never paid rent? No written agreement? Nothing? Nothing. Not a dollar. And your daughter?
You have sole legal custody.
Sole custody, I said. Her father has visitation, but he almost never uses it. I heard her pen moving across paper. All right, she said. Then here is the truth, and I want you to hold on to it. I sat very still. A family vote has no legal weight. None. You could hold a vote about who owns the moon, and it would mean just as much. I let out a breath I think I had been holding for 3 years. Legally, she continued, your parents and sister are guests you have allowed to stay. You can withdraw that permission. With proper written notice, they can be required to leave. And no grandparent gets to decide where your child sleeps. They handed her off to her father based on a false story. That is serious. So I'm not imagining things, I said quietly. No, Patricia said. You are not imagining things. You are the only adult in that house with actual standing. There was a short pause. Then she asked, do you want to do this loud, or do you want to do this right? Right, I said. Always right. Good, Patricia Vance replied. Then let's get the papers in order. Lily woke up the next morning in my bed, and for about 4 seconds, forgot anything had happened. Then her face changed. She remembered. Can I see my room? She asked. I had hoped to fix it before she looked. I had not gotten the chance. Let's look together, I said, because hiding hard things from a child only teaches them that hard things are shameful. We stood in the doorway. Her bed was gone. Her dresser was gone. Brooke's ring light stood in the corner like a cold little moon. And the ceiling, our sky, was half covered in gray primer. In the spots where the stick-on stars had been peeled away too quickly, the paint had torn, leaving pale little marks where the stars used to be. Lily was very quiet. Then she pointed up. You can still see where they were, she whispered. The stars had left a mark. I knelt beside her and held her close. They sure did. My voice did not shake because I would not let it. You know what that means? Marks like that means something real was there, something good, and good things can come back. Promise? I promise. I'm going to bring back every single star. She nodded against my shoulder. She believed me because I had never broken a promise to her before, and I was not about to start now. Over her head, I looked at those pale marks on the ceiling and made myself a different kind of promise. Not loud, not harsh, but complete. The people who had done this to a 7-year-old's painted sky were going to learn the difference between family and a household they simply happened to live in. And they were going to learn it on Saturday, in front of company. I tucked Lily's hair behind her ear and stood up. "Pancakes first," I said. "Then we plan the stars." My mother found me in the kitchen while Lily watched cartoons. "I see you brought her back," she said, in the tone someone might use about a returned library book. "She lives here." I kept wiping the counter. "She's 7. This is her home." "You embarrassed the whole family in front of Travis." My mother set a plate down harder than necessary. "Do you know how that makes us look?" "How it makes you look," I said, "is not really my project anymore." She didn't notice the shift in that sentence. She was too busy being right. "The studio is still happening Saturday," she said. "Brooke has worked very hard. I expect you to be gracious. People are coming." "People are coming," I repeated. "The Hendersons, Mrs. Okafor, Brooke's photographer, and 2 of her brand people." She touched her hair like this was all very impressive. "It's a real opportunity for her. Don't ruin it with one of your moods." One of my moods. I only had one mood. It was called staying calm while things were being taken from me. "I wouldn't dream of ruining Saturday," I said. And that, at least, was completely true. Brooke wandered into the kitchen. "You're not going to be weird about the room, right? The light is already set up. It would be a pain to move." "I won't move your light, Brooke." And I meant that too. I would not move her light. I would let her move it herself. Into a rental truck. But she did not need that information yet. My mother smiled, satisfied. She thought the storm had passed. She read my calm the way she always had, as surrender. "Good," she said. "I knew you'd see sense. We're a family." There was that word again. For the last time, I promised myself, she would use it on me like a leash. "We'll talk Saturday," I said. For the rest of the week, I became the most pleasant version of myself anyone in that house had ever met. I made coffee. I complimented Brooke's backdrop fabric. I asked my mother about the refinance brochure with what looked like genuine interest. And I let her explain it to me twice. I nodded. I listened. I gathered every loose thread. Meanwhile, in my car, on my breaks, and in the locked closet at night, I worked with Patricia Vance. She drafted 3 formal move-out notices, 1 for each adult, written exactly the way Ohio law required. 30 days, since none of them had ever paid rent, and none of them had a lease. She reviewed everything. I signed everything. Everything was dated. Then she handled the part that mattered. On Thursday, the notices were properly delivered. Certified copies also went out by mail with green return cards. I watched from the kitchen window as my mother collected the mail that afternoon. I watched her sort through the envelopes. She paused at the certified ones, frowned, and dropped all 3 into the basket by the door. The same basket where she tossed what she called junk. She did not open them. She was so sure nothing official could be aimed at her inside my house that she filed her own move-out notice under junk mail. I also signed a petition involving Lily to make what was already true on paper even clearer, so that no grandmother with a brochure could ever again decide where my daughter slept. Patricia called it belt and suspenders. I called it never again. Everything was filed. Everything was lawful. Everything was quiet. By Friday night, the only person in that house holding all the facts was me. I tucked Lily into the air mattress in my room. She looked up at me and asked, Is Saturday the star day? I brushed the hair back from her forehead. Saturday, I said, is the day everything gets fixed. You'll see. Let me step out of the story for one more moment, because I think someone watching tonight may need to hear this. If your kindness has ever been treated like permission, here is what I had to learn the hard way. Being calm does not mean letting people walk over you. The difference is a boundary. Someone without a boundary says yes just to keep the peace. A truly calm person can say no, mean every word, and still never raise her voice. If you have been confusing those two things the way I did for 3 whole years, write boundary in the comments so I know you're out there. And stay with me, because this Saturday was about to change everything. Friday became Saturday, the way it always does, whether you are ready for it or not. I woke up before everyone else. The house was still quiet as I stood at the counter with my coffee. Down the hallway, Brooke's ring light glowed faintly through Lily's open bedroom door, already turned on, warming up for its big debut. I went to the bottom drawer of my dresser and pulled out the plain manila folder. Inside were the deed in my name only, the mortgage in my name only, copies of the 3 formal move-out notices dated Thursday, the custody papers, and the photographs from Brooke's tablet printed at the drugstore, including the quitclaim form, including the message that said, "She never does." I straightened the papers the way I straighten a medical chart. Then I clipped my hospital badge to my collar, even though it was my day off. Some part of me needed to walk into that room as exactly who I was. Donna Atwood, RN, the calm one in the loud room. At 10 o'clock, the first car pulled into the driveway. The guests had arrived. But before I tell you what happened next, I need to tell you about the night before. Because of my father, late Friday, after the house had gone dark, I slipped into Lily's stripped-down room with a small can of glow paint and a brush. I could not fix the whole sky yet, but I could bring back 1 star. Just 1. Right above the space where her bed used to be. So no matter what happened on Saturday, my daughter would have 1 star again. I was standing on the stepladder when my father appeared in the doorway in his robe. For a while, we just looked at each other. He had not spoken directly to me in days. "Your mother," he began. Then he stopped. His eyes moved to the gray ceiling, to the single fresh star glowing softly against all that damage. "She wasn't always like this," he said. "I know, Dad. After we lost the old house in 2009, he said, his voice rough, something changed in her. She decided she would never feel small again. She thought if she held the family tight enough, nothing could slip away." He swallowed. "She holds too tight. I see it. I just got tired of pushing back." It was the most honest thing he had said to me in 3 years. For one brief second, I thought he might say the next thing, the thing where he stood up, where he told my mother she was wrong, where he became my father again. But he didn't. Instead, he said, "Don't make a scene tomorrow." Then he turned and shuffled back to bed. So that was my father, a man who could see the truth clearly and still choose the chair in the living room. I do not hate him for it. I simply stopped waiting for him. I finished painting that 1 star and climbed down. It glowed faint and lonely on the ruined ceiling. 1 star, I thought. It was a start. Tomorrow, I would get the rest of the sky back. By 10 o'clock the next morning, my small house was full of strangers being polite. Brooke had invited 2 collaborators, women about her age with perfect hair and careful smiles. The photographer, Devin, kept checking the light through his fingers, framing everything like it already belonged in a magazine. Miss Okafor from next door arrived in her church clothes, carrying a foil-covered dish, because that is what good neighbors do when they are invited to something they do not fully understand. My mother was glowing. She moved through the little crowd like a hostess at a gallery opening, one hand resting proudly on Brooke's shoulder, while she told everyone about the family's new creative space. My father sat in his chair, wearing a clean shirt. Lily stayed close to my leg, Biscuit tucked under her arm, watching all these adults fill up her house. "There she is," my mother said when she saw me. Her smile had a sharp little edge. "Donna has been so supportive." "Wouldn't miss it," I said. The manila folder was tucked under my arm, flat against my side. The way you carry something you do not want anyone to notice yet. Devin sat up near the doorway of Lily's room, framing the ring light and the half-painted wall. One of Brooke's brand friends said something sweet about the natural light. Mrs. Okafor stood slightly apart from everyone else. She had that quiet, older woman awareness, the kind that notices when the air in a room does not match the smiles. "Should we do a little toast?" my mother announced, lifting a glass of sparkling cider. "To Brooke," she said, "and to new beginnings, to family doing big things together." Glasses rose. People murmured politely. I did not lift mine. Instead, I stepped into the middle of the room, straightened my badge with 2 fingers, and spoke in my calm hospital voice. "Before the toast," I said, "can I ask Mom to explain one thing for our guests?" The whole room turned toward me. My mother's smile stayed in place, but her eyes sharpened. "Of course, honey," she said, wrapping her voice in warmth for the audience. "What is it?" "Earlier this week," I said, "you explained how the family made a decision about this room, about my daughter's bedroom. I want to make sure I understood it correctly in front of everyone." A small silence settled over the room. Devin lowered his camera. Brooke's collaborators glanced at each other. "I don't think our guests need all the details," my mother said lightly. "Oh, I think it's a lovely story about family." I smiled toward the room. "You said you took a vote. Tell them how it went." I watched her decide. I watched her calculate the confident move, the only move that matched the matriarch she liked to play in front of people, was to own it, to say it proudly. My mother had never backed down in front of an audience in her entire life, so she lifted her chin exactly the way she had in the hallway. "We did take a vote," she said to the room, smiling. "We're a close family," my mother said. "We make decisions together, all of us. And yes, we decided this room would serve the family better as Brooke's studio." Then she turned her smile on me. Sweet, careful, sharp around the edges. "Donna was outvoted 4-1, she said. "She doesn't get a say in everything just because she's the oldest." There it was, out loud, in front of the photographer, in front of Brooke's brand friends, in front of Mrs. Okafor, who had gone completely still by the wall. "We voted. You don't get a say." Now there were witnesses. "Thank you," I said softly. I just wanted to be sure that was the version we were using. Then I set the manila folder on the dining table. I opened it, and I took out the first piece of paper. I held it up so the room could see. Not like a threat, like a fact. "This is the deed to this house," I said. "Recorded at the county 2 years ago. There is exactly one name on it." I let the silence hold. "Mine, Donna Atwood. No one else. Not my mother, not my father, not my sister." My mother gave a short, bright laugh for the room. "Well, of course it's in your name. You handled the paperwork. But it's the family's home. It isn't, though. My voice stayed level. A home can feel like many things, but legally, ownership is written on paper. And this paper says Donna Atwood. My mother's smile stayed in place, but a warning slipped underneath it. Not in front of company. You wanted company, I said gently. You invited a photographer into my house to celebrate a room you took from my child. Company is exactly what we have. Devin was very carefully not pointing his camera at anyone now. Brooke's brand friends had stopped pretending to study the lighting. Mrs. Okafor set her foil-covered dish on the side table, freeing both hands the way a person does when they realize they may need to remember every word. You always do this, my mother said, her voice beginning to rise. You make everything about ownership, about money, about you. After everything I've done for this family, I'm not finished. I reached back into the folder. There's more than the deed. Donna, stop this right now. Her voice was louder now. The hostess smile was slipping. The warm, polished version of my mother was giving way to the one I knew much better. I am your mother. You are, I said. And I'm Lily's. Hold that thought. I took out the second set of papers and laid them in a neat row on the table, like cards I had been holding all week. 3 envelopes, 3 notices, 1 for each of them. There was no vote, I said quietly. There is a deed. Somehow, the quiet made the room even quieter. You can vote on where to go for dinner. You can vote on what to watch on TV. You can even vote on the weather if it makes you feel united. I tapped the deed once with my finger. But you cannot vote on a house with 1 name on it. And you cannot vote on my daughter. My mother stared at the paper as if the words might rearrange themselves if she looked hard enough. This is unbelievable, she said. We are family. You can't put your own mother out with paperwork. Let's talk about the paperwork. I picked up the 3 notices. You received these on Thursday. I held them where everyone could see. Certified mail. I watched you drop them into the junk basket by the door without opening them. So let me read you the headline. I lifted the first one. Notice to vacate. 30 days. Properly served. I placed it down. 1 for you, Mom. 1 for Dad. 1 for Brooke. That was when the color began to drain from my mother's face. You can't make family leave, she said. But this time her voice was thinner. My attorney says I can, I replied. Her exact words were, a family vote has no legal weight, but a notice to vacate does. I set the papers back down. You have never paid rent. You never signed a lease. In the eyes of the law, you are guests who were allowed to stay. And now that permission has been withdrawn. 30 days. It has already begun. Brooke made a small sound. My launch, she whispered. My collaborators are right here. They are, I said, not unkindly. They've been here for all of it. That was when my mother stopped performing for the room. Her voice rose, and the polished version of her disappeared completely. After everything I gave up for this family, she said, I lost my house, my real house. Do you understand that? I held this family together while you went off playing nurse and feeling sorry for yourself. And this is the thanks I get from my own daughter? I did not raise my voice. This is the part I want you to notice. If you take nothing else from this story, take this. She got louder. I got quieter. And the quieter I became, the smaller her anger looked in my house full of witnesses. You didn't hold us together, Mom, I said. My hands stayed loose at my sides. You moved in with the one person who had managed to build something steady. And then you called it togetherness. There is a difference. You will regret this, she said through tight teeth. When you are old and alone, you will remember that you chose a deed over your own mother. I'm choosing my daughter over a plan I never agreed to, I said. Those are not the same thing, no matter how many times you say the word family. My father sat in his chair and looked at the floor. He had told me not to make a scene, but I was not the one making it.
And while we're being honest in front of everyone,
I said, reaching into the folder one last time. There is a third thing I think Mrs. Okafor should especially see, since you've been telling her stories about me. Mrs. Okafor's eyebrows lifted. My mother went still. Some part of her understood what was coming. Donna, she said, almost in a whisper. Don't. But she had no problem voting on my child in front of an audience. So I felt no need to protect her story in front of one. I took out the last printed page. The quitclaim deed.
half filled out in my mother's handwriting, the sticky note visible in the printed photo. This, I said, holding it up, is a quitclaim deed. It is a form used to transfer or add interest in her property. The room stayed silent. My mother started filling one out 2 weeks ago to add herself to my house. That is a private family matter, my mother said quickly. Too quickly. It would have been, I said. I would have agreed, I said, if you hadn't photographed it for the group chat. I looked around the room, at Brooke's collaborators, at Devon, at Mrs. Okafor. The group chat I was not invited to, the one named Atwood House. My mother's face tightened. I held up the printed photo. You wrote yourself a note right here, and I'm quoting it exactly. Get deed to sign. Tell her it's for the fire insurance. The room made a sound. Not a gasp, exactly. More like the sound people make when everyone quietly understands what just happened. One of Brooke's collaborators set down her glass and picked up her bag.
Brooke, she said carefully, I think we're going to head out. No, wait, Brooke said, her voice starting to crack. The shoot! We can still do the shoot! This is just family stuff. It has nothing to do with the brand. But Devon was already coiling his cable. The ring light went off. The cold little moon in Lily's room went dark. It's a beautiful space, Devon said to no one in particular, using the polite voice people use when they are trying to leave without making things worse. Good luck with everything. They left one by one. The two collaborators, the photographer. All of them careful not to meet my mother's eyes as she stood in the middle of her ruined launch party with no audience left to impress. Mrs. Okafor was the last guest to leave. She paused beside me at the table. She looked at the deed, the notices, the quitclaim form. Then she looked at Lily, half hidden behind my leg, holding Biscuit under one arm. You painted that child's stars, she said quietly. I remember. Her voice softened. You did right. She squeezed my arm and let herself out. Then it was just us, the family, or what had been calling itself one. We stood in the remains of Brooke's launch party with a torn ceiling down the hall and 3 opened futures sitting on my dining table.
My mother tried one more key in the lock, the oldest one she had. Tears.
How can you do this to me?
She cried.
I'm your mother. A daughter is supposed to take care of her mother.
I let her cry. I did not rush to comfort her the way I would have a year earlier. I waited until the worst of it passed. Then I said the thing I had finally understood while sitting in my locked closet at midnight. Mom, I think you became so afraid of feeling like nobody that you tried to make yourself the center of a house that was never yours. My voice stayed soft. I'm sorry you ever felt that afraid. I really am. But being afraid does not give you a vote on my child's bedroom. And it never gave you permission to send a 7-year-old away based on a false story. Brooke needed the room, my mother said weakly. Brooke is 29, I said. Lily is 7. I will not take away a child's safe space to stage an adult's hobby. Not in my house. I crouched down to Lily's level and gently tucked her hair behind her ear. This is my daughter, I said, looking up at all 3 of them. She is not a line item. She is not a vote. Nobody in this family gets a say over where she sleeps ever again. That part is finished. My father finally spoke. Maureen, he said quietly, sit down. It's over. And my mother, who had controlled that house with one word for 3 years, looked around at the empty room, the dark ring light, the papers on the table, and the 3 pale faces reflected in the mirror over the buffet. For once, she had nothing left to say. That is the moment from the title, the one some of you have been waiting for. My parents and my sister went pale. Not because I shouted. I never shouted. They went pale because the story they had been telling themselves, the story where they were the family and I was simply a vote they could win, had just been replaced by a stack of papers that did not care how anyone felt. The deed did not care that they were relatives. The notices did not care that my mother was afraid. The law did not care how many times someone said the word family. And without that word to hide behind, the 3 of them were just 3 adults standing in someone else's house with 30 days to find another place to live. Brooke sank onto the arm of the couch and stared at her dark ring light. My mother sat where my father told her to sit, her hands open and empty in her lap. My father looked older than his 64 years. I did not celebrate. There is no dignity in that. And dignity had been the whole point. I had held my ground without raising my voice, exactly the way I had promised myself I would. I closed the manila folder. I left the papers on the table for them to read in their own time. Then I did the only thing that truly mattered. I picked up Biscuit from where he had fallen near Lily's feet, brushed off his one button eye, and handed him back to my daughter. Come on, baby, I said. Let's go pick paint colors. She slipped her hand into mine. Together, we walked down the hall, past the cold, dark ring light, into the room where one lonely star still glowed on a torn gray sky, waiting for the rest of them to come home. The 30 days passed faster than you might think. Brooke left first, within a week. One of her brand friends had a spare room, and Brooke took it. She carried her ring light and backdrop fabric out to a borrowed hatchback. The studio launch never happened. Her collaborators quietly distanced themselves, and Devin's name never appeared beside hers again. A wellness brand built on harmony does not survive very well when people see what was happening behind the scenes. My parents took the rest of the month. My mother spent those weeks barely speaking to me, which honestly felt like its own small mercy. On the final day, one of her cousins arrived with a pickup truck. They moved 2 towns over. There's room there, the cousin said. Enough room. As they loaded the last box, my father stopped at the porch. He did not apologize. I knew he was not going to become a different man at 64. But he looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded once. Slowly.
You did right, Donna, he said. The same words Mrs. Okafor had said. Maybe the only true thing he still had left to give me. Take care of yourself, Dad, I said.
and I meant it. Then the truck pulled away, and the house became quiet in a way it had not been for 3 years. Not empty, quiet. There is a difference. The same way there is a difference between someone who keeps surrendering and someone who stays calm while standing firm. For the first time since I signed the deed, the house was actually mine. I changed the locks that afternoon, not out of spite, out of simple math. The old keys belonged to a house that no longer existed. The custody petition went through without resistance. Now, on paper, in ink, inside a courthouse, the answer to who decides where Lily sleeps is one name: mine. No vote can ever touch it again. And the ceiling? That first free weekend, Lily and I bought glow paint and a fresh bag of stars. We rolled clean white paint over the gray primer, and when it dried, we put the sky back, star by star. She named one after the cat again. She named one after me. Then we added a new one, low near the window. "What's that one?" I asked. "That's the home star," she said, "so we always know where it is." Biscuit sat on her new bed and supervised the whole thing. My mother called about a month later. She did not apologize. Instead, she said she had forgiven me, which is something people sometimes say when they cannot bring themselves to say sorry. Then she asked when she could see Lily. I did not close the door completely. I am not built that way. And Lily deserves grandparents who can earn their way back if they are willing to do the work. "You can see her," I said. I did not soften the words, and I did not sharpen them either. "Here, with me. When you can be in this house without trying to run it." My mother did not like the terms. But terms are how you keep a door open while keeping your dignity intact. It was a start, like one painted star. People think the strongest thing you can do is shout. It is not. The strongest thing I ever did, I did in a soft voice in my own dining room with a sheet of paper in one hand and my daughter holding the other. There was no vote, there was a deed. And the deepest lesson I carry from that Saturday is this: a boundary is not cruelty. Silence is not surrender. And the people who mistake your kindness for permission are simply the people who have never seen what your kindness was protecting all along. A house has one name on the door, and a mother's love has one job: to protect the child inside it. That is my story. One double shift, one stripped room, and one quiet sentence that put an entire house back in order. If this reminded you to protect what is yours without ever raising your voice, share it with someone who needs to hear it.